Welcome to another edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff Deforrest on a Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday. Following a tremendous weekend of action, we have some things to analyze, and there are still some reports, too, of Florida State fans showing up in body bags in the Irish Sea after the bloodbath that took place over the weekend. At least it was a bloodbath for those that laid 10.5 points, which one of our handicappers recommended to you, and the logic was there, but sometimes you would have to say, and we found this to be true over the many years we've been doing this, better to be lucky than good. We did have one of our handicappers, the Greek, say, right away, take the points. He had no rationale behind that, except that, hey, yeah, I heard a few things. And so that turned out to be the right bet as Georgia Tech comes out and wins the game outright. How to sabotage a season right there in the opening game. I don't know what the point was. I would imagine Florida State got paid handsomely for traveling to Ireland with their team that was ranked number 10 in the country and looked like they would be able to possibly make amends for what happened last year when they clearly, and there's no other way to put this, that they clearly got fucked by Nick Saban and the conspiracy theorists who said that they were going to get excluded from the championship playoff hunt, even though they had earned every right. A stinking backup quarterback who could barely throw the football ekes out a big victory for them over Louisville, and the next thing you know, you're shut out. It was despicable what happened. Now, maybe we'll avoid some of that this year with the 12-team playoff. We'll see how that works out. Certainly somebody that was 13th or 14th will be screaming, hey, what about us? But as they always used to say when expansion of the college football playoffs was discussed, better to make a mistake at 3 or at 15 and 16 or whatever, somewhere down the road, than at 2, 3, and 4. So that in the interest of fairness, the right teams get to compete for the championship. Now, if you're betting who's going to win the college football championship, or if you took the money line on Georgia Tech, which would have taken a certain amount of courage, BetOnline is the place to go. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From the preseason in the NFL to college kicking off, BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds while the games are in progress. If you think you know your stuff, get in on the winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor Pool for the upcoming season. Always a lot of fun to play, especially if a lot of people get knocked out by a big upset in week number 1. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino. You can play poker. You can play blackjack. You can indulge in over 150 slot games that they have online as well. Head to the website today. Now use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV, all caps, and get in on all the action. Bet online. The game starts here. We have a history with Florida State, by the way, here, originating from South Florida. And, of course, there was always a great, passionate but somewhat friendly rivalry between Florida State and the University of Miami, a team that I covered for many, many years. I've been in Florida over 41 years. I was not a big college football guy as a kid growing up. I grew up in New York, and there really wasn't that much interest in college football. We were big baseball fans at the time, and we didn't really have any college teams to follow. Syracuse was too far away. Even though it's in the state of New York, it may as well be in another country if you're growing up in New York City. And who wanted to watch Ben Schwartzwalder, even with Jim Brown and Floyd Little and all of the greats, Ernie Davis, who played there, just run that 3 yards and a cloud of dust offense. I got to Syracuse in 1969, and they still hadn't discovered under Schwartzwalder that the forward pass was legal. Of course, he'd been running Zonk right up until that point. Larry Zonka had Jim Nance as well, so there was reason to stay with that strategy. But in general, not a lot of interest in college football in New York. Now, I moved to the West Coast after I got out of school and was covering USC and UCLA football for newspapers around the Los Angeles area. And really started to follow the sport a lot more closely at that point. But when it came to the Deep South here, which Florida is a part of, very much a part of, in fact, very reflective of the Deep South in terms of the mental state of what goes on here. They want to take all the parks and turn them into hotels now. Good move there by Ron DeSantis. But that being said, firmly entrenched in deep football territory here. And so a lot of interest in that Florida State game. Many people, even family members, were texting psychotically during the course of the game. Can you believe this shit? Can you believe what Norvell is doing? Mike Norvell, who I guess, I don't know, some people thought that he was a reluctant choice by Florida State after they've been through many others who had either turned the job down or turned to other jobs that were being offered. and they sort of, I don't know, some people thought they settled on Mike Norvell. He happens to be a really good guy, right? Straight laced, by the book. But you're wondering, what were they thinking in playing this game against Georgia Tech, a team that came on a little bit? Of course, Georgia Tech will factor into another theory that we have on the show today about what to do in the Miami, Florida game that comes up this Saturday, which is the season opener for both of those teams. Florida under Billy Napier. At first, you thought they were going to do some things. They had Anthony Richardson, who was a great college quarterback. We don't know how he's going to acquit himself in the pros. Still a lot of speculation about that. And the Miami Hurricanes, who got Cam Ward from the transfer portal, a standout playmaking quarterback who is somewhat error prone, but they also have what has turned out to be the human kiss of death for quarterbacks. And that is a coach that committed such a despicable act last year on the field in terms of strategy. This is so bozoic, so basic, that if you have a chance to take a knee and run out the clock, which he refused to do against Georgia Tech, trying to justify this by saying, well, I never do that. Well, put it in your fucking playbook, Mario. So, I mean, we're wondering whether we can trust Mario Cristobal, who has ruined a couple of quarterbacks. He was like the Dean Smith thing with Michael Jordan, where he had Justin Herbert at Oregon, and you didn't know that the guy could play, right? One of the best quarterbacks regarded by many, certainly top 5 in the National Football League. We'll see what Jim Harbaugh can do with him. But you just don't know if you can trust this guy. Any guy that would blow a ball game like he did, and a subsequent series of atrocities had to occur in that Georgia Tech game for Cristobal to still lose. And then he shrugs it off and says, well, that's what we always do. You have to question if he's only there because of the strangulating salary that he's being paid over the next several years, guaranteed money in a contract that I'm sure if you ask insiders at the University of Miami, that they clearly regret. We'll see. They have the softest schedule. Would you lay 2.5 with the Hurricanes over Florida? That's a question that we'll address a bit later on. We do have a pick for you today, and it's going to be interesting because Florida State clearly sabotaged their season. For what reason? Were they getting paid an exorbitant amount of money to play that game in Ireland? I mean, unless you're recruiting, do you remember Nigel the Leg and the replacements? What reason would there be to have a presence in Ireland except to prove that greed is not always good when it comes to college football? I'm not sure what Norvell was trying to prove. He goes against a tricky opponent. They have abandoned the option a couple of years ago. Started to get a little bit better at throwing the football and became a more formidable foe. Very treacherous turf, and led to a lot of people being administered jackets that tied in a back after that loss. Straight up, nice bet if you play Georgia Tech on the money line. Getting I think plus 3.5. So that was a good one, and an interesting way to start out the college football season. We did hit with New Mexico, given out by the professor on Friday's show, getting 13.5 against Montana State. That game turned out to be close. I think it was 4 or 5 points, and so we did come out of that 1-1 with the professor and 1-0 with our man the Greek. We'll be featuring both of those gentlemen later on in the week with picks as we get into what is officially week number 1 of the college football season. But interesting to see what transpired in that ball game. Now, I was following the Little League World Series. How weird is this? That in the Little League World Series, you had an exclamation point play that seemed to be inconceivable. Chinese Taipei has won 17 Little League World Series championships. They are far and away the most efficient team. California, the state of California, had won 7. And they were the top among the American teams that have won, which was evenly divided, I believe, going into this championship round yesterday, where each, the international and the United States contingents, each had won 37 championships. So you have a team, oddly enough, from Florida. Lake Mary is outside of Orlando somewhere. And they had, a typical American contingent of players, which always has to include the one fat kid who's a lot of fun to watch. And that was the case here. A young man had a game-tying base hit with 2 away in the 6th inning, which essentially is the 9th inning in Little League Baseball. And then, I mean, how odd is this? The Chinese, known for what? For discipline, for taking kids right from the womb and immediately training them to play in this Little League World Series. They are disciplined. They are just constantly doing fundamental drills, well-schooled in all of it, very humble. I mean, you don't see a lot of gesturing and I, me, my type of stuff from the Chinese. Taipei team, and they're out there and they're leading 1-0 going to the sixth inning. And what happens? The game ends on such a typical little league play where the runner is attempting to be sacrificed from second to third in the eighth inning, extra innings, home team at bat, the Florida team from Lake Mary, and they attempt to sacrifice bunt. Pitcher feels it. First baseman makes a move towards the ball. There's nobody covering first base. Pitcher throws it in the right field, and there it is, championship. Could have never conceived of this happening to the Chinese, where they would make a bozoic, bonehead play to lose the championship like they did. And of course, the appropriate tears were flowing after the ball game. But congratulations are in order. And it's always the fat kid that's the most fun to watch whenever they have the Little League World Series. I don't know if you guys were betting on that, but instead of the usual result where the Chinese prevail because of their incredible discipline. You had them throwing the ball game away, and I thought it was just a euphoric moment for U.S. kids and baseball, even though we thought originally that maybe they were just simply being exploited by ESPN by being on TV. All right, tonight's the night, and we're going to step out of our comfort zone a little bit here on the show and give it a pick. Now, we have a reputation at stake here. We were 5-0 on baseball picks going into this week from the selections that I personally gave you. That's not to say, and let's not get delusional here, that I'm some expert handicapper that's going to win every game. But we certainly have gotten off to a really, really promising start. So do you step outside of your comfort zone? I was looking at things to bet on today on the slate. You have the Astros in Philadelphia. Philadelphia has Zach Wheeler on the mound. The Astros are on fire. They're playing great baseball. They came back and they won 6-3 last night against the Orioles, which was a big loss for them. We were looking at a couple of things, but you have to lay 150 to win 100 with Wheeler in Philadelphia against a red-hot Astros team. So we took that out of the equation. I was reading some very sophisticated handicapping in Action Sports again by a gentleman named Sean Trippetti, who handicaps baseball for them. And he is saying, and maybe you would take a flyer on this because the logic, once again, is pristine. And this is what you have to watch for. I mean, when they're starting to cite things that even Matt Damon at Good Will Hunting wouldn't understand in terms of mathematical permutations, I'm not sure that I want to put my money on that. But this gentleman is recommending today that you bet at plus 190. Aaron Judge did a home run in tonight's game against the Nationals. Nationals throwing a guy that gives up home runs. It looks like he's throwing a meatball up there, beach balls. And the Yankees are red hot right now with Soto hitting home runs. Stanton is coming alive, surrounding Aaron Judge, who is hitting 2 homers a game, it seems like, as a matter of routine. And by the way, I went through, I was, 10 years old during the 1961 Major League Baseball season when Maris and Mantle were assaulting what was the sacred record of the Bambino, eventually to lead to the ugly asterisk aspect of things that are in record books when Ford Frick, prick that he was, didn't want to acknowledge that Maris had the single-season home run record. So he put the asterisk there because Babe had done it in 154 games, and it took Maris 8 games longer. It was a cheap shot. It was ugly. The record is a record. A season is a season. You don't see them making these adjustments in any other sport. Otherwise, every record book would be laced with this ugly asterisk. And, it's been, a 39 plus 24, 53-year debate about whether or not there should be an asterisk associated with certain records. But if you're going back to that season, and there have been 3 great home run seasons that we've been able to witness, I'm not sure that this one qualifies as one. But with Aaron Judge, I mean, he got to 62 home runs. That was great. Many people consider that the official record. And he did that 2 years ago, and he's coming back now. He's got 51 home runs, and we still have a week to go in August. An excellent chance that he either ties or eclipses that record, and virtually no chance that he can get by the juice. Remember Barry Bonds, right? His head was the size of a golf ball. Then it was the size of a watermelon. Now it's back to normal. Did he go to a head shrinker? I don't know. I think we're talking Victor Conti here and the juice. So without juice or any insinuation that he's using it, Judge is doing phenomenal things. So there's reason to want to see him hit home runs. And yet, after reading this very eloquent case about how it would be worth plus 190 for Judge to hit a home run tonight, as hot as he is, my inclination would be to think he's going to see nothing that's anywhere near the strike zone. And I would probably be inclined to bet against it, except for the fact that you're laying prohibitive odds. So those were 2 things The Philly game against the Astros with Wheeler and looking like a very promising win proposition for the Philadelphia Phillies at home against a red hot Astros team. But I had to throw that one out. Odds prohibitive. Don't want to lay 1-2 on Aaron Judge hitting a home run or not hitting a home run tonight. So we come to this, and this is where we go. Is it a good idea in gambling to go outside of your comfort zone? I'm not so sure of that. I mean, you're going to have to do it on occasion. So if we were forced to make a pick, and we'll make this an official pick, we're looking at the Marlins game against the Colorado Rockies. Now, if you watched the golf tournament over the weekend, took place in Colorado, guys, little skinny rails and waifs of human beings like Keegan Bradley, who won the tournament, by the way, and will never mention Billy Horschel again. I promise you, ever, never. It will never come out of my lips to bet on Billy Horschel to win a championship. I mean, he had that run at the British Open, yeah, but maybe we should forget about that because we've buried you with that the last couple of weeks. But Keegan Bradley, who is the captain of the 2025 Ryder Cup team, and this was great because they're all chanting USA. It's going to be taking place at Bethpage Black next year, which is a course that I originally started playing golf on when I was in high school. We didn't know how to golf, but we're on this course that is a monster. And I would imagine it's developed into being even more treacherous with the growth of the foliage and things like that. Things that really didn't matter back then, like trees. But it is going to be a lot of fun once it takes place, and people like to bet on that. I don't know if anybody had Keegan Bradley over the weekend, but if you were watching a tournament, and the reason I bring this up is because, wow, guys, I mean, this skinny waif of a guy is hitting 400-yard drives. The ball just flies. You forget about the rarefied air. So we're looking at the Rockies and the Marlins tonight for our pick, and we're going outside of our comfort zone. The Marlins can hit the ball a little bit. Jake Berger has been hot. Some of these rookies they brought up are acquitting themselves pretty well. They got Edwards at shortstop. He's hitting like 360, although doesn't have enough at bats to qualify for the batting title in a year where you're having, maybe one guy in the whole league besides Louis Arise hitting 300. It's a heck of an accomplishment for this kid. They do have some guys who can hit. They have no pitching, and the over-under in this game is 10.5. So my inclination is we're going to make this an official pick. Henry, write it down, mark it down. Take the over in the Marlins-Rockies game, 10.5. Cabrera's on the mound for the Marlins. He pitches to like a 5.5 run average. And the Rockies are starting a guy who's coming off the injured list named Feltner, who is 1-10 on the season with a 5-point ERA, 5.00 earned run average. So we're thinking the ball's going to be flying. We were just watching a golf tournament. As we said, as rarefied as the air is on all occasions in the Mile High City, it seems to be even more rare today, right? Just red as if it was raw. And two pitchers that have had very little success so far in containing other teams' offenses on the hill. We're going to use that combination to go over 10.5 runs, Marlins and the Rockies as our selection tonight. But as you can see, I'm a little shaken because that's somewhat outside of my comfort zone. So a great weekend all the way around. Congratulations. This Torpedo Anna was coming with every stride. Horse racing is one of the few sports where the men and women go against each other. In this case, a filly going against 3-year-old colts in the Travers Stakes at Saratoga. Fantastic race. Fierceness wins the race. So we had thrown out Fierceness on the bounce theory because this was a horse that only ran a good race every other time at the track and was due for a stinker. Hangs on and wins by a narrowing head as Torpedo Anna makes a great account of herself for a filly running against colts and a female horse going against male horses. Fantastic. You won't see it in any other sport. The Travers turned out to be a lot of fun, even though I failed to cash a ticket as Sierra Leone, who I backwheeled with everybody, ended up a staggering third, unable to close on what we thought was going to be a much hotter pace. So we were wrong about that. And the weird thing about the whole Judge thing, I'm rooting for Aaron Judge. Like I say, I'm a fan. I want to see him eclipse the record. I love it if he would possibly hit 74 one year. That would be fantastic. I don't think it's going to happen. But certainly would like to see him continue this amazing pace that he's put up. Not quite like the 61 M&M boys, which Marison Mantle, I was following that as a 10-year-old. It was sensational. You had in 1998, you had Sosa and McGuire going after the home run record, and they eventually would eclipse it, the 60-something before Bonds shattered it. It's always fun to follow these kind of home run chases. I'm not sure that we're getting that level with Judge and Juan Soto, who's having a great year, but people are making those comparisons. So we'll watch for that tonight. But I'm thinking Judge gets nothing to hit and does not hit a home run. We're laying out of that one. We're going with the over in the Marlins game against the Rockies in Colorado. So that's going to be a late start. We'll watch for that tonight with two lousy pitchers on the hill. And still formulating an opinion about the Hurricanes and the Gators, the Mario Cristobal factor. I mean, when you have a team that should have been shaking hands with the other team instead of shaking their heads after a game like they did last year against Georgia Tech, how can you trust that coach to do anything positive when he has to go on the road in a very, very difficult place to play? And that would be the Swamp, no matter how good or bad the Florida Gator team is. And as we said, Billy Napier very much on the hot seat with Florida. People are speculating he'll be gone if he doesn't have a good season. And Mario Cristobal would definitely be gone if he wasn't locked into a hideous, onerous contract that he may have earned with his stint at Oregon, but he also showed signs that perhaps he was not ready for the big time and being held in the same category, at least financially, as like the Nick Sabans of the world. So we'll see what happens. We'll work on that game for you the rest of the week. All right, you guys have a great day. A lot of fun being with you here on Bury Your Bookie. The official pick of the day would be the over in the Rockies-Marlins game. We're going to go with that. We're thinking, was Greed really good for Florida State? Wow, that was painful when you sabotage your entire season on the opening day. And unless they were going to recruit some weird kicker like that guy, Nigel the Leg, remember him from the replacements? What's the point of going to Ireland except for the money to play a game that ultimately took you right out of the race in week number 1, week 0, actually, for the national championship? So a lot of weird stuff going on in the world of sports. By the way, too, Little League, I'm sure a lot of you played Little League baseball. The umpiring was always atrocious. But did all of these umpires that were in the Little League World Series go to the Angel Hernandez School of Umpiring? My God, of officiating. I mean, what constitutes a strike? They always call it a high strike there. And they love to call a guy out on the check swing, no matter what, no matter how easily he checked the swing. The hitter, they're ready to ring him up there on the base pass. So it was a lot of fun all the way around, but nonetheless, you still saw and were reminded of some of the atrocities that occurred when you were playing Little League Baseball. All right, we will see you guys tomorrow. We're going to try and bring you the Greek tomorrow, who is so far 1-0 on the program, and always has some kind of direct pipeline to Las Vegas to get steam. And that's probably better than the most sophisticated of analytical handicapping methods, because we've seen so many times that the deeper the math, the deeper the problem. All right, we'll see you next time. For everybody connected with NoFilter.net, I'm Jeff Deforrest. See you on the next edition of Bury Your Bookie.